Hello everyone. In this video, we are discussing the defense of poesy by Sir Philip Sidney and his chief argument of comparison between poetry, philosophy, and history. The most important and the most difficult task of Sidney is the defense of the value of poetry in the intellectual life of the community. He treats first of poetry in general and then of its different kinds. His plan is to inquire into the efficacy of all arts and sciences and by a comparison of their various effects on the human mind, to assign to poetry its place in intellectual values. The end of all learning, he agrees, is to know and by knowledge to lift up the mind from the dungeon of the body to the enjoying his own divine essence. This is a very important quotation, you can add it in your notes. He admits that both philosophy and history play their parts in the teaching of virtue. Philosophy does it by precepts. Now, what are precepts? Precept is a rule about how to behave or what to think. You can call it a principle. Philosophy teaches us the nature of virtue by means of analysis and definition. The method of history is quite different from that of philosophy. Philosophy teaches virtue by precept, history does it by example. A historian does not give us a theoretical analysis of virtue, but he takes concrete examples of virtuous men from the past ages, and in this way illustrates to us what virtue really is. Now, Sir Philip Sidney makes the biggest distinction between a philosopher and a historian. The philosopher teach virtue by certain abstract considerations, but Sir Philip Sidney tells us to follow the footing of them that have gone before you. But there are defects in both these methods. Philosophy and history work in a different way and therefore both lack the good points of the other. According to Sir Philip Sidney, a philosopher cannot guide the youths because they will not be able to understand him properly, because a philosopher deals with abstract rules and precepts. Sidney says poetry is superior to both philosophy and history because it combines the function of both. The poet takes up the abstract rules and universal truths of philosophy and illustrates them by vivid and concrete examples in the manner of the historian. The world represented by poetry is an ideal and perfect world, a world more intelligible than the world of experience. Sidney says the philosopher scorns pleasure and therefore avoids all emotional appeal, while the historian has to follow the facts so closely that he cannot add any charm to the personages he describes. The poet has no such restrictions. He takes up his material and molds it according to his taste and presents fascinating pictures of it before us. The poet shows the path of virtue in such a delightful way that we are forced to follow it unconsciously. So, in this way, Sir Philip Sidney makes a distinction between a poet, a philosopher, and a historian. And he considered poetry superior to both of them because poetry combines the function of both. Here is a previous year question based on this very topic. In An Apology for Poetry, Sidney discusses the didactic function of poetry by comparing it to philosophy and history. Easy, very easy. So I will meet you in the next video and do like and subscribe the channel for more content. Thank you.